And we are live at 5. How cool is that? We're so punctual. So actually, he's already here and we haven't introduced him. So, we love to mix it up and make it fun and change things up. So James, how are you this week?
Very well, very well. Just looking forward to giving thanks for all any of our American friends, cousins that are watching just now, giving thanks on Thanksgiving today. So, yes, what a year. But looking forward to getting everything planned for 2021. What about yourself? How are things going this week for you, Maria?
It's busy. It's our year end this week because our year ends at the end of November. So it's like gathering all the figures, all the chaos of that, and actually discovering things that haven't been as bad as you thought. We've done all right. So yeah, that is a relief. Thank goodness. We've got our virtual conference next week. So anyway, let's introduce our guest who is sitting here patiently and in his lovely office. Our guest this week is the Global Ambassador for London Speaker Bureau, and I've invited him on because he's been, obviously, year-end, he's been looking at what's been going on, and he has some insights of what he's seeing in the marketplace. So welcome, Harry.
Thank you very much. And I'd also like to say happy Thanksgiving to all our American friends on this important day.
Absolutely. I want some turkey now.
You mean? Well, I see. I'm the vegan here, so I have to go for this. Is it tofurkey? Is that what you buy? You buy in States tofurkey?
No,
it sounds horrible. Whatever it is.
No, just have a carrot. So, Harry, you recently wrote a report, and you've noticed some interesting fragmentations in the market of late. And I wondered if you would share those with us, because I think they're very useful for us to hear, whether we're speakers or whether we're bookers, or it's some interesting insights. Would you care to share what you're seeing?
Sure. I mean, I think this is, we're very early stages, but I think the majority of the work we used to do pre-COVID was keynote speaking at conferences around the world. And there were bits and pieces we used to do. We used to do masterclasses, you do a bit of boardroom advisory, but they were relatively small parts of the market. And then obviously COVID hit, and we're close to our clients, and their clients obviously immediately switched into virtual. But actually we were then getting requests for many more different elements other than just that narrow confine of keynote speaking. And one of my colleagues said a few weeks ago, said, Harry, how do you see the market going? And one evening I was sitting up late, and I just bashed out a few idle thoughts about looking at what had happened in the last few months. And I realized that in some respects, rather than talking through each booking, actually sort of patterns were beginning, and this is very early days yet, to sort of come about, which I thought, there are 4 main areas that I think are happening. And some of our listeners might agree, but they might want to add a few more. But the first one is, I see there are larger events. When I say these are marketing events, these are events where a client is wanting to get lots of registrations, and or indeed lots of viewers. So they might be doing a series of webinars, but they really want to up the numbers. And what they can do, and what they have been doing, is then hiring in a really high profile speaker, spending a bit more, and getting, a huge number of increases in registrations or viewers. And that might be a private bank, that might be a security company in America. And if they hire someone who's really high profile, suddenly you've got 16,000 attendees. Now, I think there aren't many events in the live world where you get 16,000 attendees, but I think in the virtual world, you can suddenly scale up enormously. So and also there are smaller companies who are also doing that. So they might be hiring someone like Tim Peake, and they're moving their attendees from, let's say, 400 to 800. And they are so happy with that, because there's certain people who, the attendees will go, I am not missing out on that. That sounds really interesting. So that's one area. The second area is really the same sort of thing that we have been doing for many years, but it's the sort of annual event where a keynote speaker is supporting the CEO, their vision, or just complementing that conference. And that's kind of what we have been doing, and that's a sort of a standard sort of normal, and the attendees can be 200, 300, or just internal teams. The third area is much more, I think, really interesting, and that has grown an awful lot, which is really small events of, let's say, 8 or 10 clients, maybe 15 top clients. And this is much more of a dialogue. This is a keynote speaker, a specialist in whatever subject, and the client is getting a huge amount of value because the client is inviting their clients, and they feel like they're inside the rope. The politician or the speaker feels, the attendees feel that they're having a direct conversation, and they are not restrained by the politics or the media. They're having a really sort of like, a cloak going around them, and they're going, like, we're having a dinner, or, you're having a one-to-one conversation, and they feel they're getting some real nuggets from that. In some respects, the speaker can be a little bit more indiscreet or a bit more honest about what they know and what they can't say in the open. And I think that's really interesting. And I think that engagement is really valuable. And I've even been dealing with a client today on a much smaller scale. They didn't want to have a big budget, but actually I can find them a speaker, and that can work really, really well. And in fact, they're going to do a series on the back of that conversation. And then the fourth area that has come across my desk an awful lot, and it's been a big part of the business in the last few months, is kind of using speakers, not as speakers, but as subject matter experts. And that's providing content for the social media outputs, for television programs, and we are, in some respects, their agent. We know how to, who to recommend for a particular niche subject that client wants. And so those are the four buckets. You've got big corporate marketing events, you've got a standard event, which is the annual conference, you've got the micro event, and then the last one is much more dispersed, and it might be even consultancy. One of our great speakers, Mark Stevenson, he's doing a whole world of stuff, and none of that is to do with keynote speaking. It's to do with, using him as a great thinker within, let's say, the MOD or Médecins Sans Frontières, etc., etc. He's doing amazing stuff.
And so what are you noticing, Harry, in terms of how the fees are changing? I know within a lot of the bureau community and with the clients and the speakers as well, there's a lot of discussion about fees, especially as it relates to virtual. What are you noticing with the fees, especially at those, maybe those larger events and those kind of mid-sized ones you were talking about there?
Well, for the larger events, yes, the client is having to pay, how do I say, the full fees, and sometimes more because of the requirements of that specific request. And that is, like all these things I have found on all four buckets, one has to be very clear or get very clear instruction from the client, and often they are not sure initially what they want, but they need to be very clear what it is that they are wanting, because it's not a standard off-the-shelf solution on all of these things. In the world of virtual, there is an awful lot of, dare I say, why do we do this as well? And once the contract, it needs to be nailed down absolutely specifically. And they might have a few other things that they want to do as well, and that those need to be thrashed out. That it needs to be very clear in the contract about how they're going to use the content further down the line, the timing of that, and everything needs to be signed off or indeed viewed, because if they break it up for social media, snippets can be taken out of context. So there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done by us as a bureau to ensure that the speaker's content is protected and valued and not exploited. So there's an awful lot of work to be done. And each, how do I say, the requirement of, it's only for 15 minutes or it's only for half an hour is a load of nonsense, because you've got a tech call, you've got a briefing call, you've got, a whole boatload of work to do with the contract. And there seems to be a flurry of emails before and indeed afterwards.
And are you still finding that the lead times shorter still, are you finding?
Yeah, no, those have settled down a bit. There was, I'll just give you an example, there was a whole lot of work we were doing in September where I was getting a call, and I'll give you an example. I think I was quite proud of this. We got a call at about 5 o'clock on a Monday for 3 speakers to be live on Wednesday, and And well, we had one speaker in Sao Paulo, one speaker in Boston, one in California. But the tricky part is they all needed a videographer in the house. All the protocols needed to be signed off. I needed to find videographers in Sao Paulo, Boston, and San Francisco. I can't remember where it was, but it was complicated. It was a lot of work. There's a lot of contracts to go back and forth, and I think that's a pretty short takeoff time. Also, we needed to get them, dare I say, the money in as well, and all that has to. There's a lot of peddling that goes on, of which the consultant has to do quite a lot of work on.
So with this, as you're starting now to kind of bridge going into 2021, what advice would you give to maybe any of those speakers that are watching this just now? And as I'm saying this, please, anyone that's watching, listening to this just now, please leave any questions, because we're happy to ask Harry those questions on your behalf as well. But what advice would you give to those just kind of, they're not celebrity speakers, but they're just real solid experts on the topic? What should they be doing to get ready for 2021 and really ensure that they're going to be growing their business?
Well, I think the most important thing, those people who have deep knowledge on a specific area, people I would refer to as subject matter experts. I'm beginning to not see them as speakers. I see them as subject matter experts. And it is very useful for us as consultant when we get sometimes often a very woolly brief, but sometimes a brief where that person wants a specific topic, like coming out of a crisis, or agile transformation, or China's influence in the Caribbean, or some really kind of. But those people who know what they can speak about, they need to articulate to their consultants the stuff they're doing at the moment, the stuff they're writing about, the stuff they're reading about, and really say, look, these are the big topics that I'm covering, and just. We need a series of bullet points. One of our great speakers, Inma Martinez, is she has deep knowledge on 5G, and it's just like, this is obviously a hot topic, or it certainly was in the summer, and it obviously a massive topic at the moment, but it's slightly gone out of vogue. But being able to reply to a client and say, these are the 6 areas that Inma is talking about. Why don't you, and then you suddenly they realize the depth at which Inma can go on, and that's just a snapshot of, make sure your consultant knows the things that you're interested in at the moment, because then it's high up the mental in tray for the consultant.
Absolutely. And actually, on the subject of 2021, have you got any predictions? Is this going to carry on, these 4 trends that you're seeing? Do you think they will carry on and grow? Do you see that are we going to have any in person? Are you still working on virtual?
All right, there's about 5 questions there, Maria, but
I know 5 questions in one. Put you on the spot.
Okay, so I will try and take the first one is I do think we're going to be doing a lot more of using subject matter experts, and I think micro events will grow. I do think actually micro events, when we go live, will also be part. I think corporates are going to tread very, very carefully with groups of 100. I believe that. I hope we can go back to where we were very soon. I really hope to do that. But I do believe that there are, if you are a corporate and you are looking to want to engage with your audience, whether that's live or virtual, you can cut down, dare I say, on the flights and the big venues and stuff like that pretty quickly. But actually, content is still key, and content really is the value that brings everybody together. I think people are still desperate to gather around wise words. And that is where they should come to bureaus like ours to say, who do you think is an expert on this, but also who can help us understand how we can manage our business going forward, who can generate some good ideas. And the other thing is, I think sometimes corporates have in the past been afraid of is asking someone to really challenge them. And I think there are some speakers who can slightly put the cat amongst the pigeons, and push them quite hard and say, well, these are some ideas. You don't have to agree with any ideas. I mean, we all, dare I say, we know lots of people we don't agree anything with, but we still like them. And I think it's a useful dynamic conversation to have. So I think micro events are going to grow. I think virtual is going to be all the way through 2021, and indeed it's going to be very much part of the future. So I don't think that's going to tail off at all. I think the stuff where we're providing content for social media will grow. I think that's really exciting. I think drilling down into short sound bites, gone are the 45-minute keynote. It's going to be, our attention span has reduced. Just look at what the kids are into at the moment.
So on that note, you were saying, like, on talking about, Maria was asking about the questions about some of the topics, some of the areas. For those middle, I'm going to call them the middle class, the ones that the traditional business of a lot of speakers and bureaus, which was the classic kind of keynote, if you want to call it
Yeah.
that. What topics are you seeing coming up? Because we're going to be moving into 2021. In the UK, obviously, you're going to see probably quite high unemployment starting to come up. There's also a reskilling thing that's going on. A lot of problems with countries in terms of productivity. Obviously, the digital transformation is continuing. There was a whole kind of diversity thing that was really starting to get a kind of push. What are the topics that your clients are asking for just now? And are there some that maybe that you're a little bit surprised that they're not asking you for just now?
Okay. It is very hard for us, and Maria, I'm sure will agree. Trends are in our business is kind of difficult to, because we work on such a wide, let's say a couple of years ago, Brexit was like 4% of the subject that was requested, and yet it was like the third biggest topic or something. Do you know what I mean? It's we work on. I think crisis management experience is something that I have done. I wouldn't say that's a trend, but it's certainly come up a few times. Post-traumatic growth, I think, is something that I think people are wanting to get to. Leadership, I think, is an interesting area, and there's such a broad. How do I say? That's a broad subject in itself. The new era of consumption, obviously, workplace of the future. I think people are looking to young entrepreneurs who have, or indeed people who have run businesses who have been one step ahead of where the business. I say Martha Lane Fox. She was, but people who thought of something before everybody else did, and were foreliners in that experience. So, and then I think diversity is a big area that I think we are dealing with a lot of now. I think that's very much required. I think the panels of, here we are, 3 white middle class people on a panel is and well, certainly men are that's it. There won't be panels without a woman. That simply won't happen for all good reasons.
No, I'm here.
I know. But I mean, do you know what I mean? It's diversity is absolutely absolute currency. I can see it all the time, and I think we are. I think that we're well suited to deliver on that, and I think that's that's really interesting, that whole area. But those are areas I think that have come up.
It's like diversity of, not just diversity of speaker, but diversity of thought as well.
But actually, diversity of everything is a requirement, a necessity. And I think those, we do provide, dare I say, options to clients so that they have the choice. And there's no way that I can put an option together, 3 or 4 speakers, maybe more sometimes, which doesn't have a good cross section of diversity. It simply won't wash, and that's that. Of course, that's the way it has to go.
James, I think we ought to take some questions. Have you been keeping an eye on the questions?
I have
quite a few.
There's a very good one here from Lavelda Vincenzi, who asks, does micro events equate to micro budgets, Harry?
Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah. No is the honest answer. I think that the speaker and the just because they're talking to an audience of 8 people, there's no reason, it's still time and preparation and insight, most importantly, insight that you get. I mean, so there is no, dare I say, getting a speaker to talk for 15 minutes is as much hard work for them and indeed us. It just seems a shame to only ask someone to talk for 15 minutes is my view. So the short, making it sound, well, I'm only wanting them for 15 minutes is absolutely immaterial. I mean, it's your fault.
I've often actually the speech I'm doing on Monday, they initially asked for 15 minutes, and then I actually got them to extend it a little bit to 30 minutes, so that feels like long. But I was trying to explain to them, there was, what was that famous line where the writer said, I'm sorry I have to write you a long letter. I didn't have time to write you a short letter. I feel it's so much more work it's like poetry, going from prose to poetry. It's like so hard to go to narrate like that way.
But actually, I mean, in respect to the clients, I think, I was dealing with a world-class, proper high-level speaker last night, and he's only required for a pre-record for 15 minutes. Obviously, I'll just tell you the fees have not changed, whether it's 15 minutes or 45 minutes. But, and someone said, I don't think I've ever heard you speak for 15 minutes. But the point is that they wanted a shot in the arm. They wanted him to drill down, as you say, James, into a series of, dare I say, quite an intense 15 minutes. And that takes a lot of work and a lot of preparation to do so that it is really useful, really impactful. We do know that, there is the issue of Zoom doom and stuff like that. But, this is a balance. And we're all trying to find our way through it and why the best way through it. But it is possible. But I don't think the fees should have to be slashed in order for this. The insight is still the same. It's still relying on 20, 30, 40 years of experience.
Super. I'm going to pick up another question, if I may. It's Lavelda again. She's got a lot of questions. What are the barriers to getting the diversity of speakers? Are there?
I don't think there are. I think that there's deep experience across the board. I think it's sometimes difficult to know whether. It's really not a problem. I don't think there is a barrier at all. I think it's something that it's very easy to do. And I don't think that we need to make a huge effort to do it, but I know that it is being requested, and that's a trend.
Well, but I know one of the things that London Speaker Bureau does, which I don't see many other bureaus really doing, is the kind of boardroom advisory part, which I guess kind of fits into that fourth column of work as well. When it comes to that, are you noticing that clients, let's say that those boards, they're able to now bring in, because of virtual, they're now maybe to bring in some different diverse thinkers and speakers, experts, easier now than they might have done in the past when they had to fly someone to come to that quarterly board meeting, for example?
Yeah, I can't really comment on that because I don't see a massive trend or a complication with it. I deal with a French bank, and they are beautifully diverse in every respect. And I don't think for many clients it's a massive problem, but it is a request that I provide a cross section and a diverse cross section. It is a trend that I've seen, and it's obviously much more this year than in previous years. But I don't see it being a big problem.
And I think you probably said the phrase of today, Harry, woolly briefs. I like that's going to be my phrase of today. Phrase of the week.
I saw you giggling. I saw you giggling when you said that.
We had Jim Carroll on The Futurist last week, and he had a great. Or the week before, he had what was this aggressive indecision with some clients, which I thought was a great phrase as well. So woolly briefs is the phrase of the week, I think. Maria, do we have any other questions from any of our?
Yeah, I think I was going to say, let's take one last question and we'll release you, Harry. So a Facebook user who we can't identify, sadly, has said, you said diversity thinking. Can you expand and share what that means? So diversity of thinking.
Was that to me or to Harry, do you think?
I think that's to Harry, I think. Anybody? Who would like to take that?
I think it's James. James might have mentioned
I think
it.
maybe, yeah, I think this just goes because of my background. Obviously, I speak on creativity, innovation, AI, and an early role model, I guess, in the world of speaking was someone like Edward de Bono. And Edward de Bono
Yeah.
always said, so you have the different thinking hats. You want diversity of thinkers. You want, in his case, he calls it, the black hats and the green hats and the blue hats. You want people not just in terms of what they look like and their backgrounds, but their thinking. You want those people that are very analytical, very hard thinkers. But you also want, people who are maybe much, there's more heart in what they do as well. And I love when you get those blends. I love when we bring groups together. I think you mentioned, I think it was Duncan, who's another speaker on creativity from previously Walt Disney. And that's one of the things he's really good at as well. Just when you bring these groups together virtually, people have this diversity of thought, and you can get some very interesting things. It's sometimes not pretty, but you can get some very interesting new insights from it.
Yeah, I mean, on that point, General Patton, who was an American, very imposing general, he used to say, if everybody in the room is agreeing, somebody's not thinking. And he's not the sort of person you would have wanted to argue with. But the point is, it is the debate, it is the bashing around and bashing the idea around that creates the idea, whether you're young, old, and whatever background you're from. That's really where the sparks fly, and you get really good ideas. But no idea is a good idea until it's been really thoroughly kicked around, and you need diversity of thought and diversity of thinking.
Fantastic.
Yeah.
Harry, cannot thank you enough for all those insights. Really useful to know, to have an idea of how the market is going with these 4 different requirements from clients. Good to hear that 2021 is going to continue. Good to hear that fees are stabilizing and staying high. Good to know you're busy.
That could be busier.
I should remember that. So thank you so much for your time. Thank you.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you, Harry.
Bye-bye.
So, wow, there was a lot
Yeah.
in there as well. And thanks for everyone's great questions as well. I mean, this is one of the nice things we get to do with this. We get to bring in these experts, in this case, experts on the bureau side, and we get to interrogate them a little bit and ask some of those questions we might not be able to usually get.
Wasn't it?
Yeah,
Poor man,
we learn new phrases and really woolly briefs. There you go. So,
lovely.
Should we have a little chat about virtual showreels?
Yeah, we've been talking very much about the virtual's here to stay. It's clear it is. We all know that. And so the question is, and I've been asked by many speakers, and obviously I have an opinion, and I'm sure you do too. But the question is, do you need a virtual showreel? So what are your thoughts? In fact, it'd be nice to see people who are watching if they have a virtual showreel. But what are your thoughts, James? Do you have a virtual showreel?
Yeah, I do. I have a hybrid, a blend one, and also one that's purely virtual as well. And I would say if you were just doing this now and you're not speaking on stage, you don't have a lot of footage of speaking on stages, then definitely go now, create that virtual showreel. Looking now into 2021, if you have a background where you've been speaking already, so you have some nice footage, and you now there's some virtual footage you can start to put together, I would actually just go straight for a hybrid model and have that blend where you can do the on-stage stuff, and you can do the virtual, and you can do the hybrid. And I think that's probably where we're going to start going up. But when we talk about showreels, there's so many different flavors of them, and every bureau I seem to speak to has a completely different opinion as to what they want the speakers to give them. So Maria, what do you want? Let's imagine your ideal speaker. She comes to you and she said, okay, Maria, what should I create for this virtual show? What do you need to close these deals to make these deals happen?
Listen, I am super opinionated on showreels. I personally love a good showreel. I think you should have a virtual showreel. It can be hybrid. If you haven't got any, footage that is on stage and live, you can certainly do it now on hybrid and on virtual. But the reason I say you need it is because clients are concerned. Do you look good virtually? Can you do it? Can you deliver to a high level? Give them reassurance. So what's the point of a showreel? The point of a showreel is for you to show yourself in your best light, for me to come away knowing why you are credible on the topic, why you're an expert in it, to convince me that you've got some real in-depth knowledge about it, so that I know what those results are that you're going to deliver, what the outcomes are. And it's like a movie trailer. It gives me enough to say, I want to book the rest of the movie. I want to see the rest of the movie. And people forget that often, and they don't give enough of themselves speaking. They have other people giving vox pops and talking about them. I want to see you. And if I'm going to see testimonials, I want to see testimonials written. I want to know the person's job title, what organization they came from, and they need to be peers of the people that I would be booking you for. Listen, I could go on about this subject for a really long time because I think most people get it wrong. I'm really sorry, guys. Most people get it wrong.
So actually, I'd love to know of the people that are with us just now on live, do you have a virtual showreel? Let me know. Yes, no, in process. Just maybe quickly type in the comments there as well. When it comes to pure virtual showreels, let's say just someone just going to do a virtual showreel, they haven't been speaking on stages, so they just want to focus on the virtual for now. How long should it be? What are the key components you think that they should have in them?
Well, I mean, in terms of duration, you want to make it as short as possible because we have got short attention spans, but you've got to give enough of your content so that there's enough there that I get an idea of what you talk about and how you talk about it. In other words, the bullet points that Harry was saying. So I need that. But I'm going to give some examples of great showreels, if I may. I actually prepared something I prepared earlier. So when we went into lockdown early doors, the very first virtual showreel that we saw, and it set the standard, was from Jez Rose. Absolutely brilliant. And he hired a crew to do it, but he showed us around. He's on a farm, so he showed us all the different options of where he could film. He showed us in studio. He showed humor. He showed his content, and he gave you total safe pair of hands. And that was a very expensive way of doing a showreel, but it gave you great confidence. We know that obviously Jim Carroll, who's been a guest, has got a great reel. Nicholas Webb, another futurist, has got a great reel. You'd expect the futurists to sort of grab.
They should be on it. They should be on it.
Yeah. Alan O'Neill, another great show. And then there's a show that I have discovered on LinkedIn because I was tagged into it because I always talk about showreels. This is somebody I haven't booked before and I wasn't aware of. And she created a reel based on some of the stuff I'd said to her. And it's Tony Kent. Check out her reel. It's really excellent.
Right.
And it would give me confidence, even though I don't know her, it would give me confidence to book her. Really top job she did. So it does make a difference between having a doubt and saying, actually, I'd go ahead and book that person.
I think on the virtual one, I was excited. On my virtual one, there's very little like behind the scenes stuff, like showing the tech. And that was kind of on purpose because I was worried that that's going to date pretty quickly as well. But at the same time, I know that a lot of clients really, really want to see that stuff. So someone like Jason Hewlett, who did a great show reel, he brings his family in it and everything. It's like a real family thing, and it's really nice. And Erin Gargan is another speaker. She kind of shows you behind the camera, and I think that's obviously gives a lot of confidence to the clients if they can see that. I was just a little bit. I didn't want to show some of where how the sausages are made a little bit. I kind of wanted to make it feel much more like a movie trailer, like sell the sizzle, not the steak. Then because I know that I'm not competing against every other speaker. We spoke about this last week. I'm just competing against 3 or 4 other speakers, usually around my topic. I just need my videos to be better than theirs most of the time.
Absolutely. So when you're running away from the bear, you've just got to outrun the other person. One person. You don't have to outrun the bear. You just got to outrun the slowest person. Absolutely right. And you know, Tony's example, if you do have a look at it, she's actually gone into a studio and had it done professionally. So you don't necessarily have to have it done at home. But I don't know why you're scared of showing behind the scenes, because your tech is super. I mean, your microphone is one that most people would never ever aspire to.
Yeah, I don't know. I think maybe it's the entertainer in me. I don't like showing like how it's made and things. I just want to show what the illusion is, what the result is. And we're seeing Glynis here finally doing one. Great, fantastic to hear. The fancy backgrounds are back. Yes, that's right. We've got our nice backgrounds back again.
Well, we had complaints that our backgrounds were too dull. Now, you could see we didn't coordinate because I'm not on. You know, I'm at home.
Yeah.
Whereas you're out somewhere. Yeah.
Lavelda was just asking, isn't there a risk if you don't have a huge tech setup without space sharing kind of behind the scenes? My setup's actually relatively small here. You can do a lot in a very small setup if you have the right camera with the right kind of
Yeah,
lens.
yeah,
If
yeah.
you're
I
using
mean,
green screen, Jim showed this yesterday. I
yeah,
mean, Jim's space was
Jim
very,
Carroll showed, yeah,
yeah.
10 foot by 12 foot or 9 foot by 12 foot, very small. So, I mean, Harry's office is bigger than that.
And if someone's watching this just now, they're just getting started and they don't have a big budget, I would normally say if you're going to spend money on a show reel, spend whatever your fee is. So if you're a $5,000 speaker, spend $5,000 on it, and that might sound mad, but I just think you want to show if you're a $5,000, it looks like a $50,000 video. I just want to put that production. But if you are very constrained just now financially, what to do is reach out to your local art schools, filmmakers in your local area. The person that did mine actually was fantastic. We never actually filmed it in the same room. He was filming from 100 miles away from me. And this is the power that you can do it. So you can have your director in a completely different country as well. So you get creative with it and just reach out. There's so many amazing and creative young directors and producers just now looking for things to work on.
Okay, brilliant, super. Well, I think we've come to the point where you share who our sponsor is.
Yes, and a little bit of a link to our guest earlier with Harry. Our sponsor for this entire series of This Week in Events is London Speaker Bureau. London Speaker Bureau is the world's only global speaker bureau. They have offices in 18 countries, plus probably now, around the world. And if you're looking for a wonderful keynote speaker, maybe one of those kind of bigger names we were talking about for those bigger events, or maybe you've got a much smaller one, these kind of micro events, or you're looking for a real subject matter expert to bring in and to help give those insights to your team, then just go to londonspeakerbureau.com and you can find a list of all of the information, and please reach out to the team at LSB.
Fantastic, super. It's time again, time of
Yes.
the week for us to talk about our tool of the week. So, James, what is your tool of the week this week?
So I don't know about you, Maria. I've been spending too much time sitting at laptops and computers just now, and it's not good. I've got a very nice chair, and that's all nice. And you've got a wonderful rising desk. But what I find is working for me, and I do this when I'm on the road as well, is yoga every morning, just to stretch and just to kind of do that. So the tool that I use is a tool called Yoga Studio. It's on my iPad, and I do that every morning. My little 15 minutes, just get stretching, and I just find it just kind of centers me for the day, whatever the madness of the day is going to be.
Fantastic. And actually, I, as a result, sitting a lot, have got an expanding posterior. But anyway, that's another subject. It's too much.
We might have some woolly briefs for you for that if you need them.
Very good. So my tool of the week actually is something that I've been using for the last few months, and I found it really invaluable. And I've found that some speakers use it, and I know you use it too. And I highly recommend that you do this when you're working with, especially with bureaus. You really help us out. I'm using Calendly to help me to schedule appointments. So if somebody wants to arrange a telephone call with me or a Zoom, or we might be arranging a podcast, I can send my Calendly link and they can check my availability and they can book in. And in fact, if they've got Calendly too, it will tell them when they're available. But from a speaker's point of view, if I'm trying to schedule a briefing call or a chat, it's wonderful if I can do it using your, Calendly. And some of our speakers are doing it, and it just makes life so much easier. And you actually have different types of appointments, don't you, on your Calendly?
Yeah, and I always constrict the time. I make it like very, very short, like 15 minutes, or I never do a 30 minutes, they're usually 25 minutes, because I just find meetings usually go on too long anyway. So, but Calendly's great. So I've got them for our podcast guests. You talk about a discovery call, strategy calls, client calls, media interviews, they're all there. And that's a great tool. So Calendly, we're going to put a link, if you don't know about Calendly, if you go to thisweekinevents.com, that's the site for the show, and just enter your details there, you get all the show notes that we've been talking about today. Because I hear someone was just asking, where can we find Tony Kent's showreel? So after this, I'll go and put it up there as well, make those available. I just did a thing of the 21 top virtual keynote speakers with all their showreels. I'll link to that at the same time.
And you're
Maria,
in the list. You're in the list.
Funny that. Yes.
Yeah, it's one way of sharing it, maybe, perhaps, perchance. Sorry, you were going to say, James.
So great. Well, thanks everyone for coming and joining us for another week of This Week in Events. This is our 10th edition. We're always trying new things. If you've got any questions for future shows, please just head over to This Week in Events. We're always looking for new ideas as well. And Maria, thank you for bringing on some of these fantastic guests like Harry with their amazing insights.
You're very welcome. Lovely to see everybody. And I'm going to play out the music. Yay.